back, everybody, to the Childhood Cancer Perspective. I want to once again thank you all for sticking with me so far. Please continue to like, share, and advocate as we will continue to share these stories both with myself, my family. They're going to be here. I'm hoping to interview some other families down the road, maybe even some doctors or caregivers, and get their perspective on seeing things on their side. You're obviously getting a side of a parent and of siblings from a child that has passed from brain cancer. You're getting those inside stories that don't line up with the commercials that we all know and truly don't like, probably. So, today, what I want to talk about is humanizing the effects of cancer, what cancer does to a person, a body, your physical side of it, your mental, your spiritual, things like that, what it does to you on a personal level. And I want to try to humanize that, or at least kind of bring relation to what you've seen, and so we can all understand exactly what it is and what it does, but what it doesn't do. It doesn't change the person. That person is still the same, and I want you to remember that as we talk about it later. Several things that I will discuss, several things that affected, maybe affected us as parents and even siblings more than it affected JC, were hair loss, weight loss, seclusion from friends and family when she was secluded from school, being in the hospital for long periods of time. Most of it was 3 to 5 days, and then, of course, our 50 plus day stint in the hospital for her stem cells. Um, Things like that, that they make a difference in how a child kind of goes through their life. But at the same time, as with them being so young, it is normal to them. It becomes a normal day to day life. And I think it's easier for them to kind of adjust because they're still kind of learning what is acceptable to do in their day to day life, or what they're supposed to do when they get up in the morning or go to bed at night. And it's kind of one of those things that they learn. However, on the other side of that, it does become something that they figure out very quickly. And we always say that our children are warriors. They pick up on and are smarter than they're given credit for. So, one of the first things that I want to talk about is probably the most recognizable trait of somebody that's going through cancer treatments. Now, it's not always the case, but I think this is one of the main things that people see and they might relate to cancer, and that's the hair loss. Hair loss is something that happens because chemotherapy, the whole point of it is to go in and essentially clean out your body. It is essentially supposed to bulldoze everything in it, start you from scratch. And unfortunately, it goes after the most active cells and active reproducing cells first, which are your hair follicles, knocks those out. So, therefore, going through these treatments with JC, I remember that when she came out of the shower one day, came out into the living room, and gave me a clump of her hair. And that was the first time going through all of it, even though we had been through the diagnosis, we had been through surgeries, we had been through radiation, these things. When she gave me that clump of hair, it became real. Like, that was one thing that hit me the hardest. And I think I even broke down at that point. And she just said, "Here you go. Here's my hair." And that just proves once again, like I've talked about in the past, the innocence of these children, the genuine um, people that they are. They don't see this as an issue. They see it as, it's no big deal. It's just hair, which it is. It is just hair. But to us, it can be a defining factor of somebody. And when you see that start to fall out, especially with JC, who had this bright, vibrant red hair that made no sense with our family dynamic, no sense at all. And that was one of the first things that people would notice all the time when they see her, was her beautiful, beautiful red hair. And when it started to fall out, that hit me really, really hard. And I know it hit everybody else, but I just, speaking for myself, when she handed me that hair, it became real. That was the first time that everything really hit, um, super, super hard. I don't really have any other way to put it. And she didn't care. She honestly didn't care. And her attitude through all of that was, well, you know what? I just less hair that I have to brush, less hair that I have to wash. And that's really how she approached everything bad that we would associate is, maybe something that, we take for granted. She took it as, well, I don't have to wash it now. So, oh, well, no big deal. And for us, it was tough. But when that hair started to fall out, and we started to see it, and she just kind of continued to live on her life, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I think that's how we treated it too, and just kind of don't make a big deal out of it. If she thinks it's a big deal, we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it, and we'll decide what we want to move forward with. We eventually did get her some wigs that she never wore. She actually put them on one time. She put them on when she got them, and that was before she truly lost her hair. And she never wore them after that. Even when she was completely bald, aside from about four hairs that she refused to let go, she never did, because her definition of her was not her hair. Her definition was her genuine insides, her willingness to give to other people, and her willingness to just be a kid and have fun. She didn't care. So therefore, we didn't make a big deal out of it, and we loved it. We loved her little peach fuzz and her soft little bald head, and we just didn't care. But for many people, that effect can be very detrimental, and it can really it can hurt, and it can make you feel like I don't know, you're not the same person that you were because you don't have your hair, or that your hair defines you. And I just want you to know that anybody that's going through that, or that has a child going through that, that if it does bother you, just let it go. It doesn't matter. Like, these kids don't care. I shaved my head when JC lost her hair, and Miley, our 15-year-old, she shaved the underneath of the back of her hair, and she put a gold ribbon. They razored a ribbon in there. We had friends and family that shaved their heads when she lost her hair, and it was very symbolic, and it was just to show that it's not a big deal. And you know what? She didn't care. We rolled with it. So it's not worth losing sleep over, and it can grow back. And when it does grow back, it's kind of fun, because some hers grew back in different colors. It grew back both curly and straight, and it was weird, but it was kind of funny, and we kind of made a joke out of it, and that made it easier for her to really just blow it off any more than she already was. The next thing that I would say is the biggest thing that we kind of felt right away was social exclusion. Jace was diagnosed in January of 2020. And if you don't recall, for some reason, what was happening in January of 2020, that was the very beginning. That was the beginning and the height of COVID as it was in China. And that was the beginning of it starting to creep into the United States. So by the time we got home and got her back into school by March, so we're talking within months, by March, everything was shut down. At that point, nobody was in school. Everybody was doing virtual school. Everybody was getting up in the mornings, doing their schooling online, and then just kind of living their lives, being at home. And so in the beginning, it wasn't a bad thing. Social exclusion from her friends, and things like that wasn't bad, because they did virtual school, so they could all see each other on the screen every time they did class. And we had neighbors next door that their window is, they put a string between the window, and they would, every night at, I think, 7 o'clock, they would go out there, and they would take notes, and they'd send them over, and they would send, you know you know how the toilet paper scare was. They would send a roll of, just, they would have fun, and they would make the best of it. And so in the beginning, that social exclusion was not that big of a deal, because to her, everybody was doing it, so it didn't single her out because of what she was going through. As we got farther along in her treatments, and everything was opening back up, and everybody was able to go back to school, that's when it started to hit her the worst, because we were doing a lot of her schooling in the hospital rooms when we were there for chemos. And then when she would come home, because of her, being immunocompromised, and we're still dealing with the COVID scares, she was not able to go to school. So even though the schools were open, she couldn't go. She hated it. She wanted to be in school in the worst way, with her friends, with her teacher, just being there with her class and being part of it, and she couldn't, and it hurt her so much. And it really, at that point, it made her angry. She hated to do schoolwork at home. She hated to be forced to do her schoolwork in Zoom classes when she was in the hospital. She didn't like to do it because she wasn't able to be there and be part of it. And so a lot of stuff did get pushed to the side, because she just got overwhelmed and frustrated with it. And I think that really does relate to a lot of people that are going through this. You can't be in school and be in the public settings and be around the people that you want to be with, that maybe give you comfort, that maybe distract you from everything that's going on, that give you the ability to just live and be a kid. And she, and I'm sure a lot of other children that, if you're listening to this, they miss out on that. They miss out on that opportunity, and it just, that broke her. It got to the point that where she would do tests or she would do schoolwork at home, and for every test or for every piece of schoolwork that she did, we would give her money, give her a quarter, a dollar, whatever. And so when I would come home from work, my wife would say, okay, well, she did XYZ. Guess what? Dad owes you $3 or something like that. And she would come get it from me, and every single day, and she'd put it in her piggy bank. And, to this day, we have that money set aside. We didn't, we haven't spent it or anything, but it's, that's something that it helped motivate her in a time when she, I guess, kind of, she felt, like an outcast without actually saying it, but that's kind of what she felt like. Towards the end of her treatments, she was able to go back to school a little bit. She would go for a couple hours a day just to be there, just to sit in her class, just to be with her friends, and just to be as a part of it as she possibly could. And she loved it. She was amazing. I mean, she was in there. I've got pictures of her doing her schoolwork, and she would come home and she was so happy because that's where she wanted to be. And her friends love her, and they would be so excited to see her come into class. And when she finished her treatments, I remember we took her to her class on their graduation day. We took her there on the very last day of school so that she could be there with them and graduate with her class, because she deserved it. She earned it. She wanted to be there, and they wanted her there in the worst way. So that social exclusion really does affect people in a negative way. I think, as adults, we can kind of figure out ways to either, whether we go to work or whether we, you know whatever we're doing, we're, making a podcast or something, we're finding ways to entertain ourselves or keep ourselves busy, to move forward with everything that's going on in life, and not allowing these exclusion or the quarantines or whatever to slow you down. Whereas kids don't understand, why can't they go next door and play with their friends? Why can't they go to birthday parties or go to the pool or go to school even? Like, why can't they do that? And it's harder to get them to realize, yes, we're bored too, or we're upset too. We want to get out and be with our friends, and we want to live our lives, but right now it's just not safe. We need to be here. I think that was probably one of the toughest things that she had to deal with, and that we had to deal with as a family, was the fact that she just couldn't get out there and do what she wanted to do and be a part of everyday life with her friends and her classmates. It was very, very tough, and I think that's one of the biggest things. Um, the other thing that goes along with that is the loss of friends. When you're going through cancer treatments, or they hear the word or cancer diagnosis and things like that, friends can start to kind of disappear. And I talked about this in a previous episode where, we had friends that kind of disappeared. Whenever all this happened, they left. They thought it was too hard for them to be around us, so they just decided the best thing we can do is just be gone. Now, with kids, we've noticed that it was different. At least with JC's class, it was different. We didn't see any of her friends disappear. We didn't see any of her friends stop talking to her or not want to be around her. In fact, all of this made them want to be around her more. If anything, they wanted to be near her and to kind of take care of her if they could. They would send letters to class. We have a blanket that they all colored, and it's all swatches, and then, they've got their names on it, and we they sent mail. They would drop off things at the front door for her. They wanted to be around her, so we didn't notice the loss of friends or people kind of disappearing with JC. Now, we talked about it with us, but with our older daughters, our Annalisa and Miley, they did notice, I think, some friends that were around and were always there, wanted to be a part of everything that we were doing, wanted to be part of our events, wanted to be part of our fundraising or just be part of our lives and let us know that they were here for us, they backed off. Some of them did back off and go away. Some of them don't talk to our daughters anymore, and our daughters have, they've learned to move on from the people that are toxic to your lives. But this is something that definitely happens. It's part of that. I would say the effects that diagnosis affects you in a lot of ways, and this effect is sometimes it scares people off. Sometimes it pushes people aside because they don't know how to react, or they feel like once the fight is over, if that's the way you want to look at it, that they feel like they no longer need to be around you. They no longer need to, give you that support, because what are they supporting? And that's unfortunate, but at least for JC it didn't really happen. As a matter of fact, we still talk to her whole class. We're still part of we still speak to the school, we still speak to the teacher. We actually have one of her classmates is going to be the MC at our event coming up in August, which is really awesome. And they're all these kids are right there with us, and they want to be part of our lives as much as we want to be a part of their lives, and we want to watch them grow and everything that they're doing. It is hard because we don't get to see JC going along with them, but they are growing up into the most amazing young kids, and it's going to be incredible what they're able to accomplish. Um, so let's see, what else do we have here? Um, another another thing that happens during the diagnosis of cancer or as you're going through treatments is your body changes. You have the weakness of the muscles and the weakness of the bones, the weakness of a lot of things that are happening within your body, your ability to kind of run and jump and have, endless energy, and um, your ability to keep your breath up when you're doing things that are, cardio related and things like that. That is another big effect that kind of slows these kids down and slows them down to the point where they're not able to be part of their friend group or part of their activities like they want to be. And so that was something that definitely made a difference when it came um, to JC, because the effects of these treatments can be overwhelming, not only for the child but for the parents and the caregivers can be absolutely overwhelming, and to the point where sometimes we're at a loss as to what to do. Um, and the loss of appetite, number one, is something that is scary, because that as an adult we know that we have to get a certain amount of nutrients into our body in order to survive, and we also know that if we don't eat enough, how it makes us feel, whether it's lack of energy, or we feel sick, or we feel very lethargic, whatever. We know what that means, and we know how to essentially fix it, or at least to look for the answers that will make a difference. Children have a very hard time explaining what is going on with their body and why um, they feel the way that they feel, or even how they feel the way that they feel. Even our 15-year-old, she is, if she doesn't feel well, she has a hard time really explaining how it feels. So imagine, a 6-year-old in JC going, all the way up to 8, or imagine, 2 or 3 or 4-year-old, or even a baby that gets diagnosed, so they can't tell you how they feel. And they also don't know when they're so hungry that it's detrimental to their body. They just know, I don't feel good and I just don't want to eat. But they've got to get that nutrition in them. Um, so I think for us as parents, it becomes more concerning on a daily on our the daily life, because we look at that appearance, the appearance of a child that is losing weight rapidly, or is skin and bones when they once were, a plump little nugget. And when JC got out of her treatments and when she came home, she actually started gaining weight really fast, and I was actually worried she's going to get overweight very quickly. And it leveled out. It finally leveled out. It was, once her body kind of got the metabolism back from, not being hungry for so long, it did level out. But she did end up losing a lot of weight towards, her during her treatments, during her chemo treatments. and then towards the end she gained a lot of it back because of the steroids. So it's up and down, but it's one of those things where you just don't know um, exactly how they feel and exactly what you need to do, because we're looking out from the outside in and they can't tell us how it feels on the inside. um, so being concerned and making a big deal out of how they look just in general is a very, very fine line, and it's something that's very hard to balance, and something that we really have to focus on as parents and caregivers, because they're picking up on everything that we're saying and everything that we're doing. And if we come at them with, oh my gosh, you're losing so much weight, oh my gosh, you just, you got to eat, you got to eat, you got to eat, they get tired and frustrated very quickly, and it's understandable. But we're in our mind, we're just trying to make it better, we're just trying to fix it. As parents, that's what we're supposed to do, and we're supposed to protect them, and this is a situation that we just don't have that control, and that makes it very difficult for us. um, let's see. So we talked about hair loss, weight loss, their friends, with school, you know, the social interaction and things like that. I mean, really, a humanizing the effects of cancer is really just about understanding that even with physical, mental, even spiritual changes, like all of my kids were in Catholic school from preschool all the way up to eighth grade. JC obviously from preschool all the way up um, through second grade, and it's um, their spiritual changes can happen because, especially then, they're questioning why, you know, their creator would allow them to feel this pain. Why would their creator not allow them to be with their friends and just be a kid? And so she never really expressed that to us in so many words, never really expressed, um, her lack of trust or her change in feeling with God. And, with being, 8 years old, that really never came up in her being able to say anything. But what I will tell you is that to me, she did multiple times, and even the night of her passing, tell me that she wasn't scared. Um, I know that at words sometimes she was when the relapse or the re-diagnosis happened in that following September of 2020, that she did say that she was scared, and she didn't want this to happen again. She effectively had felt so good for so long that she was scared to go through it all again. But when she got to the point of not really being able to communicate with us and not really being able to kind of just laugh and play, even being stuck at home, she did say that she wasn't scared. And I think that her faith never changed. I don't think in her mind, and as much as she could vocalize, I don't think her faith ever changed. I think her faith stayed the same. I think she was not scared because she knew that she was going to be whole again. And I think that she felt that although we were scared and maybe we were angry and we were, questioning God, that she would let us know in so many ways that she's okay, and not to be upset, not to be angry, and not to be scared, because she wasn't scared. I think she felt safe in knowing that she was going to be in a place where she was not going to feel this pain anymore. She wasn't going to feel those effects of cancer, the hair loss, the weight loss, the loss of appetite, the social exclusion, um, just feeling like garbage all the time, and feeling every time she ate that she would be sick, and then the point that we had to put in her NG tube just so that she would get the nutrients that she needed. And then she would sleep all the time. The last few months she slept all the time. When she was home with us on hospice, she was in the bed 95% of the time. She didn't want to get up and do anything. She tried, but she just slowly started to get to the point where her body just was not going to let her get up and do anything. And that hair on her head, that's, like I said, that's in the beginning, that's the most noticeable effect of cancer treatments. That never changed. It grew back slightly, and then we went in for treatments for her stem cells, and it all fell out again within a day. um, but she never cared. She never cared. And if you follow us on any kind of social media, you'll see that she had hairs. She had three or four that just they were really super long hairs that never fell out, and she would not let us cut them. That was that was her control. That was her being able to control the situation when there was no control available. And she did it valiantly, and she did it with decorum, and she did it with just grace, and we were blessed every single day to have her with us here, blessed every single day with everything she did for us. And the mission that she left us behind was for me to be able to share these stories with you, with my wife to be able to share these stories with you, my kids to be able to do that, and for us to come together as a community and as a family and build this army and change the world one way or another. We are working on legislation right now. I will do an entire episode coming up soon talking about the legislation that we're trying to pass here in Wisconsin, on all the progress that I've made and the progress that we've lost, the way that government works and the way the ins and outs of the Capitol work, and the things that I've heard. And I will go in detail about all of that. But I want to continue to share these stories. I want to continue to get them out there. So I'm gonna put it out there just like every other episode. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything you want me to talk about, things that maybe you're going through with your child, you're going through with the battle that you're having, I want you to let me know, and I will reach out and we will make an episode talking about that. I know there's many things that I'm going to be able to cover, and I think that we can relate on a lot of them. There may be things that I'm missing that maybe the good Lord is asking me to block out of my brain. There is a lot of things that you go through with this fight, with this battle, that you would choose not to remember and choose to not have in your mind. And I think that's okay. But at the same time, I think you need to get it out. Holding on to it is not a good idea, and letting it explode when you're at your worst is not a good idea. And I'm not a perfect example of that. I go through times when I don't want to speak about any of this. I go through times when all I want to do is speak about it, and I'm trying to find a balance that allows me to do that. This podcast is a good outlet for me. It's therapy for me. And if it can be therapy for you, if it can be helpful in any way, then that's what I want to do. So that is going to be the episode this week, humanizing the effects of cancer. I hope that I've explained things very well enough that based on how we went through it. Um, and I hope that you continue to come back and subscribe to the podcast. It doesn't cost anything. You find it on every single one of your platforms, whether it's Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. It does play on Pandora as well. Any other platforms I will put out there as we get them. Please continue to share, continue to listen, and remember, advocate always, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.